Courtroom 7, B9:47 a.m. The fluorescent lights buzz hard enough to make my jaw ache. I sit at the plaintiff's table beside Chen, hands folded over a stack of documents I already know by memory: credit reports, loan copies, timestamps, screenshots, denial emails, every piece of proof that my family treated my name like shared property. Across the room, my father keeps adjusting his tie, like fabric can save him. My mother stares at her hands. Mira won't look at me at all. Judge Hartley flips through the file. The court still has one unanswered question. Why does Leo Cross appear as a co-signer on a mortgage he never signed? My father clears his throat. It was a misunderstanding within the family. Chen doesn't even look at him. Your Honor, the bank submitted the verification recording. The courtroom speakers crackle alive. Then I hear it. This is Leo Cross. Yes, I confirm the terms. My father's voice. Not close to mine, not even good, but confident enough to fool a tired loan officer on a Thursday afternoon. Something inside me goes completely still. I don't feel rage anymore. Rage belonged to the first week. This feeling is cleaner than that. Final. I look at my father first, then my mother, then Mira, and in that moment, I understand something I should have understood years ago. This was never help. Never love, never family. It was identity theft, wrapped in the language of sacrifice. Chen leans toward me slightly. You okay? I keep my eyes on the defense table. Yeah, I say quietly, because for the first time in my life, they were the ones trapped in the room with the truth. 6 months earlier, my mother invited me to dinner, with the kind of voice that usually meant she wanted something. Mira was already talking when I walked in. A yoga space in the back room, she said, scrolling through house photos on her phone. And the kitchen gets morning light, like actual golden light. You can feel the energy through the pictures. Dad nodded like she was presenting a business plan instead of a fantasy. Mom smiled at me carefully. Isn't it beautiful? The house was beautiful. That wasn't the problem. What's your income right now? I asked. The room cooled immediately. Mira's smile tightened. I'm between things. You quit the design studio? It wasn't aligned with what I wanted, so you don't have a job. Dad set his fork down harder than necessary. Leo? No, seriously. I looked at Mira. How are you planning to pay a mortgage? She started talking faster after that. Candle workshops, healing circles, renting a room, building a brand online. None of it sounded real. Not because dreams are stupid, because bills aren't. Then Mom finally said it. We were thinking maybe you could co-sign, just temporarily. I actually laughed once, quietly. No, Mira blinked. Wow, I'm serious. No. Dad leaned back in his chair. She's your sister, and this is my credit. Mom's eyes immediately filled with tears, right on schedule. Leo, she whispered. Family helps each other. I looked at Mira, 25 years old, no savings, no stable work, already talking about the house like it belonged to her before anyone approved anything. Not worried whether she could afford it. Only angry someone might stop her. I'm not risking my income, my future, or my name on a mortgage you can't realistically pay, I said calmly. Mira pushed her chair back. You think you're better than me? No, I said. I think somebody in this family has to say the truth out loud. Silence. Nobody defended my point, because deep down, every person at that table knew I was right. I'm not doing it, I said. And I meant it every single time after that, too. People think favoritism looks dramatic when you grow up with it. It doesn't. Most of the time, it looks quiet, routine, predictable, like gravity. When I was 12, Mira broke Dad's watch trying to take it apart on the bathroom floor. Tiny gold gears everywhere. She started crying before he even got home. Mom took one look at the mess, then looked at me. You're older, she said. You should have been watching her. I remember standing there, thinking that doesn't even make sense. But Dad grounded me anyway. 3 weeks. Mira got a new watch for her birthday that same year. That was the system. Mira made messes. I absorbed consequences. At 17, she spent months talking about an art competition that was supposedly going to change her life. My parents paid the fees, bought supplies, told relatives she was gifted. The morning of the event, she panicked and quit. Mom picked her up from school, brought home cake, and spent the afternoon praising her bravery for protecting her mental health. I came home to balloons. Like avoiding accountability was an achievement. Nobody asked what happened to the money, or the work, or the commitment. Failure always became something poetic when Mira did it. When I helped her get a bakery job years later, she stopped showing up after 6 weeks. The owner called me because my name got her hired. I still remember standing outside her apartment while she explained she was too creatively limited to keep doing service work. 3 days later, Mom wired her money for expenses. Nobody asked how humiliating that phone call had been for me. Nobody asked why I kept cleaning up disasters I didn't create. That was the pattern. Mira failed, Mom cried, Dad defended her, and somehow the cost landed on me. By the time we sat at that dinner table, talking about the house, I already knew exactly how the story would go. They would call me selfish for having boundaries, cold for saying no, cruel for noticing reality. Because in my family, Mira's feelings mattered more than facts, and my role was never son. It was backup plan, financial cushion, emergency contact, scapegoat. The difference this time was simple. When she broke Dad's watch, I lost 3 weeks. This time, they were trying to take my name, my credit, my future, and for the first time in my life, I decided I wasn't paying for what Mira broke anymore. The notification hit my phone at 6:12 a.m. on a Thursday. New mortgage inquiry detected. At first, I thought it was a scam email. By 6:20, I was sitting upright in bed, logging into my credit account with my heart beating hard enough to blur the screen. There it was, mortgage application, cosigner Leo Cross. Property address Mira's house. For a second, I just stared at it, not shocked they wanted help. Shocked they actually did it. Most people call their family first in moments like that. Most people demand explanations, scream, beg, hope there's been some misunderstanding. I didn't, because I already knew exactly what would happen. Mom would cry. Dad would redefine fraud until it sounded generous. Mira would say nobody understood how important the house was to her. So instead, I called the bank. I wrote down every name, every timestamp, every extension number. I requested copies of the application, asked for verification logs, saved emails into a separate folder, took screenshots of everything. By noon, I had the loan packet, my social security number, my employment history, my income, and no signature from me anywhere. But there was a phone verification attached to the file. Someone had called pretending to be me. That was the moment this stopped feeling like family dysfunction and started feeling criminal. I called Mira last. She answered too fast. Hey, were you going to tell me silence? Then I thought you agreed. No, you didn't. Mom said I said no at dinner. I said no when Mom texted me. I said no when Dad called me after your birthday. My voice stayed flat. How many times did you need to hear it? She started crying quietly, not because I was hurt. Because she knew I found out. I didn't know everything, she whispered. I leaned back in my chair and looked at the paperwork spread across my kitchen table. At my own name sitting inside a fraud file created by the people who raised me. I'm not asking whether you did it, I said. I'm asking how far all of you went. I drove to my parents' house with a printed copy of the loan application sitting in the passenger seat beside me. 37 pages. That was apparently all my identity was worth to them. Dad opened the door before I knocked, like he'd been waiting for this. Leo, you forged my information. Lower your voice. I laughed once, actually laughed. Mom appeared from the kitchen, already crying. Mira stood near the hallway, arms folded tight across herself, refusing to meet my eyes. I walked straight into the living room and dropped the paperwork onto the coffee table. There's a fake mortgage under my name, I said. There's a verification call pretending to be me. Somebody submitted my financial records without permission. Which part exactly am I supposed to say calmly? Dad stayed standing. It wasn't forgery, he said carefully. We streamlined the process. I stared at him, then at Mom, then back at him again. You committed fraud. It was for family. That sentence settled something inside me permanently. Because he genuinely believed that made it acceptable. Family. Like the word itself, erased laws, erased consent, erased me. I looked at Mira. Did you know? Her lips parted slightly. I thought eventually you'd understand. That's not what I asked. Mom stepped in immediately. Leo, sweetheart, nobody wanted to hurt you. You used my social security number. We were helping your sister with my identity. Dad's face hardened. You've always been selfish about money. I almost couldn't believe that came out of his mouth. I worked through college while Mira quit classes twice. I paid my own rent at 22. I built my credit score one exhausted paycheck at a time. But somehow protecting my own name made me selfish. Mira finally looked at me then, eyes wet. It was just supposed to help me qualify. No, I said quietly. It was supposed to trap me after the fact. You all thought once the house was approved, I'd be too guilty to fight back. Nobody answered, because that was exactly the plan. Mom reached for my arm. Please don't do something that tears this family apart. I stepped back before she could touch me. Family protects each other's names, I said. You treated mine like community property. The room went silent. And for the first time in my life, I realized none of them looked guilty about hurting me. They only looked scared of consequences. The post went up 3 days after I confronted them. I found it because my cousin tagged me by accident before deleting the comment. Mira had uploaded a picture of herself sitting cross-legged in the new house, sunlight pouring through the kitchen windows like a lifestyle ad. The caption read, "Some people choose money over love. Healing means accepting not everyone deserves access to your energy anymore." No names. That was the strategy. Make me recognizable without technically accusing me of anything. The comments were worse. "Protect your peace. Family can be toxic too. Proud of you for setting boundaries." Then my mother commented, "Proud of you for speaking your truth, sweetheart." I stared at the screen for a long time, not because it hurt, because it explained everything. They weren't ashamed. They genuinely needed me to become the villain so they could survive what they'd done. I clicked through more posts, vague quotes about narcissists, about financial abuse, about choosing yourself. Mira knew exactly what stories she was selling: fragile younger sister chased by cold, successful older brother who cared more about paperwork than family, and relatives ate it up instantly. Not one person asked whether my identity had been stolen. Not one person asked whether I was okay. They just wanted the version where keeping peace mattered more than telling the truth. I didn't comment, didn't argue, didn't defend myself online like an idiot. Instead, I screenshotted everything. Every caption, every comment, every relative publicly shaming me without knowing a single fact. Then I emailed the folder directly to Chen. Subject line: smear campaign, evidence of intent. 5 minutes later, she replied, "Good, keep documenting everything." So I did, because while my family was busy building a narrative, I was building a case. Chen's office overlooked downtown, through windows so clean, they barely looked real. Minimal furniture, no family photos, no fake inspirational quotes, just order. I liked her immediately. She read through my paperwork in silence for almost 20 minutes, while I sat across from her trying not to think about the fact that I was preparing legal action against my own parents. Finally, she closed the file. "This is very bad for them," she said. Not emotional, not sympathetic, just factual. I exhaled slowly. What are my options? She started listing them calmly. Fraud report, civil action, mortgage dispute, credit protection, potential criminal referral if the bank pursued impersonation charges. Every sentence made this feel less like family drama and more like exactly what it was: financial crime. "I don't want revenge," I said eventually. Chen nodded once. "Most people say that. I mean it. I rub my palms together. I just want my name clear. I want this off my record. I want them to stop acting like this is normal." Chen leaned back slightly. "Mr. Cross, if strangers had stolen your identity, forged financial documents, and impersonated you to a bank, would you hesitate to report them? No, then don't let blood relation confuse the issue." The room went quiet. I looked down at the stack of evidence again. Screenshots, loan files, timeline notes, copies of texts where I explicitly refused to co-sign. 6 separate refusals, 6, and they still did it. Chen tapped the file lightly. "Your father used the word family to justify fraud because he assumed guilt would keep you compliant." Her voice stayed even. "People like that rely on emotional hesitation. The second you stop hesitating, the dynamic changes. For the first time since the credit alert hit my phone, I felt something besides anger. Control. Not emotional control. Strategic control." Chen opened a new folder. "First, we freeze the damage," she said. "Then we make the truth official." I nodded slowly. Because I finally understood something my family never expected me to learn. Silence was the only reason they'd ever had power over me. The mediation room smelled like burnt coffee and recycled air. Dad sat stiffly beside Mom, jaw tight, arms crossed like he still thought authority could control the outcome. Mira sat at the far end of the table, twisting her bracelet around her wrist without looking at me once. Chen sat beside me, flipping through notes. Calm, prepared. The mediator, Miss Park, cleared her throat. "The bank is willing to remove Mr. Cross from the mortgage if all parties cooperate moving forward." Dad nodded immediately. "Good, that's reasonable." I looked at him. Reasonable? He frowned. "The important thing is fixing the paperwork. The paperwork isn't the crime." Mom's eyes filled instantly. "Leo, please." "No," I said quietly. "You don't get to cry your way around this anymore." The room went still. Miss Park stepped in carefully. "Mr. Cross, what outcome are you seeking?" My name cleared officially. Fraud acknowledged officially. Everything documented. Dad leaned forward. "There is no reason to use words like fraud." Chen finally spoke. "Someone impersonated my client during a bank verification call. Dad ignored her completely. Families make mistakes, criminal ones, apparently. Mom started crying harder. Mira still wouldn't look at me. I turned toward her directly. Did you know I said no? Silence. Mira. Her voice came out thin. I didn't know everything. That's not an answer. Mom whispered sharply. Leo, stop cornering her. No, she's answering. Mira swallowed hard. I knew you didn't agree at first. At first I thought eventually you'd change your mind. But you knew about the application. Another silence. Chen stopped writing. Everybody in that room already knew the answer. They just needed her to say it out loud. Yes, Mira whispered. I stared at her. And did you ever tell them to stop? Her eyes finally lifted to mine. No manipulation this time. No tears. Just fear. No. The word barely reached across the table. Something inside me detached completely after that. Not anger, not heartbreak, just clarity. 29 years of excuses suddenly collapsed into one simple truth. She knew. The mediator started speaking again. Something about resolution paths and family reconciliation. But I barely heard her, because the last piece finally clicked into place. Mira hadn't been confused. She hadn't been manipulated. She just wanted the house more than she cared about what happened to me. I stood up slowly. Mom looked panicked immediately. Leo, I don't need you people to love me anymore, I said. I need you to stop using me. Dad's face darkened. Sit down. I looked at Chen instead. File everything. Then I walked out while my mother cried behind me, and my father called my name, like he still thought I belonged to him. For the first time in my life, I kept walking anyway. The messages started the same night. Dad first. You're really willing to destroy your own family over paperwork. Then Mom. I don't recognize the man you've become. Then relatives. Aunt Marianne called me cold. Cousin Beth sent 3 paragraphs about compassion. An uncle I hadn't spoken to in 4 years left me a voicemail explaining that women like Mira are fragile and that men are supposed to protect family, not sue them. Not one person asked what identity theft does to someone's credit. Not one person asked how long it would take to repair. Not one person asked whether I was sleeping. They only cared whether I'd stay quiet long enough to protect everyone else from consequences. Mira's message came at 1:13 a.m. 5 full paragraphs about trauma, healing, pressure, anxiety, fear. Buried inside all of it was the real sentence. I just wanted one chance at a better life. Like my name was supposed to be the price of admission. I didn't answer any of them. Instead, I created a folder on my laptop. Cross-fraud timeline. Inside it, screenshots, voicemails, social media posts, bank records, call logs. Every lie organized by date. Every manipulation preserved. Every attempt to guilt me into silence documented like evidence at a crime scene. Because that's what this was now. Chen called the next morning. You did the right thing walking out, she said. They think I'm punishing them. They think accountability is punishment. She corrected. That sentence stayed with me. I sat at my kitchen table after the call ended, staring at my phone while more notifications lit up the screen. Family, blood, forgiveness, loyalty. Interesting how none of those words mattered when they were stealing from me. Only when I refused to let them. By then, the court date was already set, and deep down, I think all of us knew the truth wasn't going to stay inside the family anymore. Courtroom 7B felt smaller the second the recording played. This is Leo Cross. Yes, I confirmed the terms. My father's voice filled the room again through blown-out speakers and static. Only this time, nobody pretended it could still be explained away. Judge Hartley removed her glasses slowly. Mr. Cross, she said to my father, is that your voice on the recording? Dad straightened in his chair. Your Honor, this situation has been exaggerated. That was not my question. Silence. Beside me. Chen slid another document onto the bench. The plaintiff has submitted a communication timeline, she said calmly. 6 separate refusals to co-sign prior to the mortgage filing. Judge Hartley scanned the pages. Text messages, emails, call logs. Every single no. Dad tried one last time anyway. We were only trying to help our daughter. You impersonated your son, the judge replied flatly. Mom started crying softly beside him. Nobody reacted. That was the strangest part. Outside this room, tears had always worked. Tears changed subjects, rewrote blame, made everyone else responsible for emotional cleanup. But inside, courtroom 7B crying was just noise. Chen stood. Your Honor, the bank also confirmed that Leo Cross never physically signed the application package. Additionally, metadata from the submission email traces directly back to Daniel Cross's home network. Dad's face lost color. The judge turned toward Mira next. Miss Cross, she said. Did you know your brother had refused to participate in this mortgage? Mira looked toward Mom automatically. Mom shook her head once. Tiny movement, desperate. Don't. I saw it happen. So did the judge. Mira's hands trembled around the edge of the witness stand. Yes, she whispered. The courtroom went silent again. Judge Hartley leaned forward slightly. You knew he refused, yes? And you proceeded anyway. Mira closed her eyes briefly. I thought, eventually, he'd accept it. Chen approached carefully. Miss Cross, did you provide your parents with Leo Cross's email address? Yes. Did you provide a scan of his identification? Mira hesitated, then nodded. Yes, and during the mortgage application process. Did you ever instruct your parents to stop using your brother's information? The pause this time lasted longer. Long enough to kill whatever illusion remained. No. Dad finally snapped. She wanted a home, he burst out. We were helping our daughter. That's what parents do. No, I said, before I could stop myself. Every head turned toward me. I looked directly at him. Parents protect their children. You used one to finance the other. Dad stared at me like I'd betrayed him, maybe because I finally had. Judge Hartley wrote something down for nearly 30 seconds without speaking. Then she looked up. The court finds substantial evidence of financial misrepresentation and unauthorized use of identity-related information. Her voice stayed perfectly calm. The mortgage agreement is to be voided immediately pending fraud review. Mom made a broken sound beside Dad. Mira started crying openly now, shoulders shaking. Still, nobody moved to comfort her. Not the judge, not the bank representatives, not even Dad. Because reality had finally entered the room. And reality doesn't care who cries first, Judge Hartley continued. The matter will additionally be referred for further investigation regarding possible criminal fraud and impersonation. Dad looked stunned, like consequences were something that happened to other people. Chen leaned toward me slightly and spoke under her breath. Your credit is cleared effective immediately. For a second, I didn't answer. I just sat there, staring at the defense table, at my father, who spent my entire life teaching me family mattered more than fairness, at my mother, whose tears finally couldn't control anything, at Mira, who wanted a beautiful life badly enough to let them build it out of my identity. And all I felt was exhaustion. 29 years of it, 29 years of being the responsible one, the stable one, the understanding one. The son who absorbed damage, quietly, so everyone else could keep pretending things were normal. Judge Hartley dismissed the session. Chairs scraped, people stood, paperwork moved, but I stayed seated for one extra second, because I needed to feel it fully before the moment disappeared. Freedom, not happiness, not revenge, just the sudden absence of weight. Chen gathered the files calmly. You did well. I looked back one final time before leaving. Dad was arguing with his attorney. Mom was crying into both hands. Mira sat completely still, staring at the tabletop like the house had collapsed on top of her. Maybe it finally had. I turned toward the exit, and for the first time in my life, I walked away from my family without feeling guilty for it. The house was gone within 2 months. Bank investigation, fraud review, loan voided. Just like that, the dream disappeared back into paperwork. Dad hired a criminal defense attorney using borrowed money from relatives who suddenly stopped posting inspirational comments about family loyalty once the court documents became public. Funny how fast people go quiet when evidence enters the conversation. Mom spent weeks preparing for a nursing board hearing because her professional conduct was now under review. Every time she called, she left the same kind of voicemail. We were only trying to help your sister. Never, we're sorry. Mira lost almost everything tied to the image she built online. The workshop stopped first, then the Healing Circle clients disappeared. Then the sympathy posts vanished one by one as relatives quietly deleted shares and removed comments pretending they'd never defended her publicly. Aunt Marianne texted me 3 paragraphs apologizing for not understanding the full situation. I didn't answer, because apologies that arrive after public humiliation aren't morality. They're self-preservation. Dad still refused accountability, even after the investigation started. This family would still be together if you hadn't overreacted. He told me during the final phone call I ever answered. Overreacted to identity theft, to fraud, to impersonation. I remember sitting there, holding the phone away from my ear, thinking he really means it. He genuinely believes I'm the problem, because I refuse to quietly absorb the damage. Mom's version was worse somehow. We lost our son, she cried, like I died. Like I was something they misplaced instead of someone they betrayed. Mira sent the longest messages of all, paragraphs about healing, growth, accountability, therapy. I deleted every one unread halfway through, because for the first time in my life, her emotional process was no longer my responsibility. That was the real ending of the story. Not the courtroom, not the investigation, not even the house. The ending was this. For the first time since childhood, something Mira broke no longer landed in my hands to fix. And once I realized that, I understood something else too. I wasn't grieving my family anymore. I was recovering from them. I changed my number on a Thursday afternoon. Took less than 10 minutes. After that, I froze my credit, updated my address, blocked every member of my family, and packed the last court documents into a storage box I slid beneath my bed. Then the silence started. No missed calls from Mom crying at midnight, no long texts from Mira about healing and forgiveness, no lectures from Dad about loyalty, just quiet. At first, it felt unnatural, then it felt expensive, then it felt peaceful. One night, a few weeks later, I came home from work and made pasta in my apartment kitchen, the same apartment I'd paid for myself, protected myself, built myself. Nobody accused me of being selfish, for having boundaries. Nobody handed me guilt, disguised as love. Nobody expected access to my life just because we shared DNA. I ate dinner at my small table while rain hit the windows softly. My phone never rang once, and somewhere in that silence, I realized something that would have sounded impossible to the version of me. Sitting in courtroom 7B months earlier, I was happy. Not dramatic happiness, not revenge movie happiness, just relief. The kind that settles slowly into your bones after years of carrying weight you were never supposed to hold. I used to think losing my family would feel like losing part of myself, but sitting there alone in the quiet, with my name finally belonging only to me again, I understood the truth. I hadn't lost a family. I escaped a debt they started charging me when I was a child.